I really want to express my appreciation to all of you for being here today. Because today, as we all gather here, we get to express our gratitude, our affection, and our love for someone who has made such a difference, not only to variegated parish, but to the community, the beautiful community of Windsor Locks. He's probably going to give me a hard time later on, the more really wonderful things I say about him. Above all, too, I want to express my gratitude to his family for being here in such great numbers. Thank you for joining us today in this celebration of Monsignor O'Grady. And thank you to the committee that worked so hard to put this together. And whoever provided the weather today, special thanks to you. Okay, Paul's going to take credit. Paul's going to take credit. So we have a number of people who are going to speak today. And the underlying theme is all going to be the same. How grateful we all are to someone who has touched the life of each and every one of us and the lives of a whole lot of people who aren't able to be here today. So with hearts full of gratitude, I'm going to turn this over to our Master of Ceremonies, Steve Carrier.
First of all, I'd like to see who's here from Father O'Grady's family. So, who's here? Oh, both tables, right? How far did you come from?
South Windsor.
South Windsor. Wow! Well, thank you very much for joining us and celebrating and honoring your brother, your uncle, your cousin.
She came from Windsor.
Oh, from the Cape. Okay, good. All right. Anyways, as Father mentioned, my name is Steve Carrier, and I've had a lot of time since 1966 when Father joined us. And I say Father because it's very difficult for me to say Monsignor, not because he doesn't deserve it, and I'll tell you why. If you are to look at where the word Monsignor comes from, it can be translated to say my Lord. And it was an honor, a title that was established for those with ability within the hierarchy of the church and so forth. And knowing Father O'Grady, he's a very humble person. And I think if he had his brothers, he would be preferred to call Father. And that's exactly what he has been to us. We don't say we're just a parish, we're a parish family. And as a father, he has looked out for us. Personally, he's been there for me in times of jubilation, times of distress, ups and downs, and you can probably connect with some of the experiences I've had. He's always been there, for example, when we went to church, saying hi to my wife and me, to our children, and even today, even in their 40s, my daughters always ask about Father O'Grady. Amy, who lives in Maryland, wanted to come to Windsor Locks to have Father O'Grady baptize her children. So his legacy is etched in the memory, the fond memories they have from them. And in terms of grief, he was there for me when my wife died. That was probably the most tumultuous time in my life. He was there also for me when we took care of Joyce's mom, who stayed with us until she died. Came to visit, offered the sacrament of the anointing to her, and was there as a source of consolation. He's been there for me when certain members of my family were experiencing addiction. And when you feel like you completely lost control, what do I do next? He was there with wise words to help me through those times as well. And some of you may be connected to that. It's no surprise that one of his devotions is to St. Francis. If you were to look to see who St. Francis was, a very humble person, a person who outreached to those who were in need, also who communed very well with nature. Really? Father O'Grady communed with nature? Look at the flowers, look at the gardens, look at the animals, right? And there's something that you should know about St. Francis. Before he gave his sermons, he would preach them to the animals. So, Father, if only the dogs could talk. We would have some really good stories, I tell you. The other thing that I also want to mention, and keeping on that theme of St. Francis, is before I turn this over to the next person to speak, is that no doubt that prayer of St. Francis is probably a central point of his life. So we're not going to sing. I know some of you are going, oh, here we go, we're going to sing. But before I do that, let me talk about his involvement with me and the rest of all the individuals who are in the music ministry. Always very supportive. And we saw that outreach. Father loves to see the joy in people's faces, including children. If you don't believe that, well, you should be at some of the children's liturgies where Elmo comes out. Tickling Elmo, the chirping chick, the poor dog dressed up as a wolf, to engage the students or the young people in regards to what a good shepherd is, watching out for his flock. That's Father O'Grady. And one of the songs that he loves that our First Communion children sing is, I've got that joy, joy, joy down in my heart. And sometimes I would have a song picked out for the First Communion, and he goes, no, let's sing, he's got the whole world in his hands, or let's sing, I've got that joy, joy, joy down in my heart. That's Father O'Grady. And so I'm going to finish with the prayer of St. Francis, which is also a song. And you can imagine that these are Father's daily words. Grant that I may never seek so much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love with all my soul. Make me a channel of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me bring your love. Where there is injury, your pardon, Lord. And where there's doubt, true faith in you. Make me a channel of your peace. Where there's despair, let me bring hope. Where there is darkness, only light. And where there's sadness, ever joy. And make me a channel of your peace. For it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, in giving of ourselves that we receive, and in dying that we're born to eternal life. So for me, Father, when that final curtain happens for this stage here on earth, you have helped give me the hope and the belief that the next scene is one of eternal life. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Kevin Dwelly, who is the Knight of Columbus Grand Knight.
First, I want to echo what he said about the Father versus Monsignor. When he was first promoted, I called him Father O'Grady, and somebody said, well, he's Monsignor now. I said, no, his name's Father O'Grady, his title is now Monsignor. So, just a little journey through my life in relation to Monsignor O'Grady. My first interaction with him was back in '98. I was not Catholic, and I had written off organized religion. Okay? So I went up with my wife, who I was just dating at the time, because communion was important to me. And I went up and received communion, went back to the pew. She said, what'd you say to him? I said, thank you. What did I know? Why? Well, that explains why he kind of gave a funny look. You're supposed to say amen. By the way, you're not supposed to go up in the first place. Okay. So then a few months later, we go to our friend Johnny Schwann's wedding, and he's the officiant. He's running things, very orchestrated. So I went from stranger to this person in charge. And then next following year, we got engaged. And then through the family, it was told that I had to go through RCIA because I had never been baptized. I don't want to do that. So I went through RCIA. Originally, I was just going to go through the motions and be done with it. But then I found out everything I believed in wasn't Catholic. So it was kind of a 180 epiphany. And then I became friends with Father McDonald, who was his associate at the time, one of the teachers. Then we got married. A couple of years later, I joined parish council. And I would sit right next to Father O'Grady. And we went from strangers to close personal friends, and he became somewhat of a mentor for me. Then, a few years later, we recycled through a few of the presidents of the parish council. Like, why don't you do it? Like, well, I don't like public speaking, and I don't want to get up in front of people or anything like that. So in that coffee hour, I said something to Paula Taylor, who, I'm not sure if she was the parish council president at the time. I thought I would really like you to do that. And who can say no to the man, right? All right, I'll do it. So, that first night I took over and took the gavel, and, I started off a little nervous. And then by the end of the night, I'm really relaxed. And I went through 2 years of that and became really OCD with Robert's Rules of Order. So I got really good with that. Then joined the Knights. After only a few years, became Grand Knight. And, as you know, up until this month, he was our chaplain as well. So if he couldn't make the meetings, he and I would talk about what's going on with the Knights. And a lot of times offered a lot of counsel for me, particularly when I became Grand Knight, running the meetings and so on. Then this hall got built, and we were invited to come over. So, all right, call a vote for the Knights. Well, if you ask anybody that's a politician, it's like when you have two opposing sides, it's quite messy. And to be the person that has to MC that was even more difficult. So the first time around, we elected to stay there. Talked to them afterward. Don't worry about it. It's okay. A few years later, we have another vote. We're running in the red now, so the vote switched the other way. Same feeling, but for the opposite reasons. Don't worry about it. Okay. So, over the years, he went from being a stranger to, I guess, this person in charge to a friend and a mentor. And really, as I just told you, I am literally a Catholic because of him. And, other than that, I'm a better person, I'm a better family member, I'm a better coworker, all because of, some of the things just in conversation with him, I would just extract it by osmosis, I guess you might say, and it's like, I'm a better person because of him, and I thank him for that.
Thank you for that reflection. The next three speakers are giving testimony or witness to the fact that Monsignor Father O'Grady influence has extended beyond our parish borders into the community. So the first speaker I'd like to introduce to you to talk to you about that is the Chief Lease, Eric Osanich.
Thank you very much. I'm truly honored to be here today. What you have here is probably one of the greatest servants of the community that I've ever seen in my career over 35 years. And I know, I'm certain, just by the amount of people here today, driving through, and people that couldn't be here, the amount of lives that Father O'Grady has touched in this community. And really that idea of service is what it's all about, service to the community and each individual. He's been a real honorary member of the police department for many years, even prior to my arrival in town. But as chaplain of the police department, conducting blue masses, always a supporter of law enforcement and helping people. Unfortunately, in this business, we see a lot of personal tragedy, incidents. Many people probably in this room have been touched. He's always been there. If officers need him or a community member, they'll come out in the middle of the night to talk to officers. And one of the greatest testaments is talking to officers in the department. They can't say enough positive words. And I know that I speak for the men and women of the department, sworn, the admin staff, the dispatchers, everybody wishes you only the best. And you're going to be a loss in this community. Thank you very much.
We heard from law enforcement, and on the other side of law enforcement are those who are incarcerated. I don't know how many of you know this, but an individual here who is not speaking about Father's involvement, again, beyond our parish community, is the service that he rendered to those who are incarcerated through his prison ministry. So, Father, thank you for all those people as well. And now, let's hear from Gary Ruggiero, our fire chief.
Thank you, Father. Distinguished guests. If anybody knows anything about the fire service, it's a gigantic brotherhood, sisterhood that you can't even imagine. This goes nationwide, worldwide. And Father, you're part of that family. You always have been, you always will be. Congratulations on your retirement. I retired August 1st. And I can tell you, people say that you're busier when you retired than when you were working. It's true. It's true. So don't be a stranger to the firehouse by all means. Father's been there for us, good times, bad times. As the chief said, we see lots of stuff in public safety that no human being should ever see and be exposed to. And Father's there for us and helps us through all those rough spots. And he's there for all the good spots, good times as well. As you know, Father is a diehard Red Sox. How's that going for you? I don't think the past 2 nights have gone too well, but that's okay. Being the Yankees, we're good. Many years ago, Father came to our department as the chaplain, Monsignor. Came to us as the chaplain, our chief then, Kenny Jeffrey. We were doing the first Memorial Day parade, and Father was going to march. Monsignor was going to march with us at the time, and Father gets up there, gets behind the color guard. And Kenny says, where do you think you're going? And he goes, well, I thought this is where I stood. And he goes, no, you're Red Sox. Back of the line. But he got even. Because the next Sunday in church when Kenny was there, he asked all the Yankee fans to stand up and told them to get to the back of the church. But turnaround's fair play, Father. That's good. We keep playing this Monsignor, Father. I keep getting messed up myself. I had to check the plaque to make sure we did it right. But Father, Monsignor, Ralph, George, whatever. This is on behalf of the entire fire service, our community, our fire department, and it says, Monsignor Chaplain O'Grady, we are very blessed to have you as chaplain of the Windsor Locks Fire Department. We are beyond blessed to have you as our very good friend. You will always be one of us, and that's for sure, Father, Monsignor, forever.
Thank you. Now, in the realm of politics and voting, before I introduce our next speaker, may I have an amen? Amen. For Father Monsignor O'Grady. And may I have an hallelujah? Hallelujah. And may I hear your hands? So, it's unanimous, Father. Without further ado, let me introduce our first selectman, Chris Kirby.
Thank you. That was a very evangelical kind of approach to the whole thing. Nice job, man. So, my name is Chris Kirby. I'm the first selectman here in Windsor Locks, so I'm sort of here in that official capacity, which is a little difficult for me in this case because I have such a personal relationship with Monsignor O'Grady. He gave First Communion to all 3 of my kids, confirmed them, and in the last year has married 2 of my daughters, and if we could get him to fly out to Detroit, we'd marry my son in January. So he's been really an important part of my own family life. as well as the community. So I had this whole approach I was going to take, this whole long speech about the beatification of St. Giancarlo of the Bronx, but after last night I thought that maybe wouldn't go over so well, so I'm going in a different direction with this. We haven't really mentioned Father O'Grady's Irishness, and we should. And I've had the pleasure of traveling to Ireland on a couple occasions. The first time was with my family and my young kids. And one thing I noticed is that as with the economy, the boom in the Irish economy a decade and a half ago, there was a lot of new construction, new roadways built. So as you drive from town to town and you go through the country land between, oftentimes you'll drive over a new highway bridge as you approach a stream or a small river. And as you drive over that new bridge, you look to your left and you'll see the ruins of the stone arch bridge that stood for maybe a couple of centuries before that. And in some cases, if you look to the right, you see the remains of even an older stone arch bridge that was there for maybe 500 years before that. And these things remain. And it occurred to me that the symbol of a bridge, the stone bridge, to get over this hurdle that you face, is really a symbol of community. So when I got home, I did a couple of things. One, and my wife thought I was, God bless her, she still thinks I'm crazy, and she's probably right. I built a stone bridge in my backyard, a stone arch bridge. Got a book on masonry and how to do it, and did it. And it still stands to this day. We don't use it, but it's there. The other thing I did, I used to have a little more time on my hands, and I used to write a little bit. And I was inspired about that symbol of the bridge. I wrote this poem, which I'm going to read in a little bit. It's called, in the Irish, Untitled Chapter, which is the small bridge, the little bridge. There's actually a pub in Dingle by the same name that stands next to this little river with a small bridge that crosses it. So, as I read through, there's a few symbols that pop out. One is that a stone itself. The stone sort of symbolizes the individual man in all of its different random forms, with its individual talents or its individual gifts that God's given us. The mason, who's referred to, of course, is God, or the hand of God. And the stream that a bridge crosses, those are the troubles that we face in life, the hurdles, or the things that we come across that individually we might just not challenge and say, well, that's as far as I go, or cross at some individual peril. So the concept is that God, the mason, finds all of these individual stones in the field, all with their individual shapes and sizes and unique qualities. In and of themselves, they have little value. But with the skillful hand of God, the shapes are combined into a bridge that's strong together, and it can cross those burdens together. And that's where the concept of community really comes in. Now, of all those individual stones, the random individual stones, there is one stone that is important, and the mason takes a great deal of time finding that keystone. That's the one that sits at the top of the arch, and it keeps the rest of the stones in the arch in place. It helps them, it guides them. And needless to say, Father O'Grady has been the keystone in this community and in my own family for 25 years. So it's an important role, but it's also, he's one of us. He's just an individual, random stone, but through God's work, the randomness, the shape that he brought, what he brought, was used in such a way that it was able to help all of us do our jobs as a community. Enough of that, I'll get to this. I had to cover the symbolism because it's been 40-something years since I was in June Sherman's honors English class across the ring, and I couldn't just rely on that skill. Anyway, here I go. It's called Andraki Biag. One man alone provides meager worth beyond the norm. Like stones, alone, we're nothing more than random, useless form. But when the master mason selects us from the field, he sees in each individual the power combined will yield. When skillfully arranged in comprehensive scheme, his handiwork enables us to bridge the widest stream. The burdens trod upon us, the sorrows we can't cure. With combined strength from our tight fit, together we endure. Andraki Pia, the little bridge, ever spans the stream thereunder. What God has lovingly brought together, let no man put asunder. Till nature's force divides us, and we fall to scattered place, we'll bear life's tests together with humility and grace. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Kirk, as an English teacher, I can say that's a keystone speech. Very well done. So, before I turn it over to our honored guests, let me go back to this whole theme of Father, Monsignor type thing. And that is when the followers of Jesus said, Lord, teach us how to pray. He didn't say, all omnipotent being, all grand designer of the universe. What did he say? Our Father. Our Father. Let me introduce to you our Father, O'Grady.
Well, what can I say? Humble, very humble. Thank you so much. Great job as you've all done. So I don't expect this, but I hope and pray that what we're doing today is just a continuation of bringing community together. But I want to thank my family for coming. Having a chance to say hello to everybody. I'm busy on the line, but my nieces and nephews, my brother, and family members and cousins, and my two grandnieces, Evelyn and Lauren. Only about But thank you so much. I don't have any prepared speech, but just humble about the whole thing. 25 years is a long time. And I'm thinking back, I said 25 years, let's see. I think I've gone through 4 presidents, 3 popes, 3 archbishops, 3 dogs, quite a few things, you know, but it's because, you know, I always say that the pastor's only as successful as the people he serves. And if you don't have a good parish, and you don't have a good community, you're not going to do it. And that's a tribute to all of you as well, for the wonderful cooperation and support you've given to me, and I know you're going to continue to give to the new pastor, Father O'Brien's been a great job on this. And the mayor of council and all those ladies behind the table, unsung heroes, so thank you. And last but not least, my good friend, Father George. Once again, my sincere appreciation. I'll be helping on our weekend, so I'm still hoping I can help with the Fireman's Carnival. Right? Everything else. But God willing, retirement has sunk in yet. So I'm kind of waiting for that. But in January, Andy and I will be sending you a postcard from Bali. We're sipping margaritas under the thatched huts. But thank you so very, very much, and enjoy the rest of the day and the food that we have. Enjoy the community it's a wonderful community that we share. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Before I let you go, Mr. Kirby is going to present something to Father O'Grady.
Talk about Irishness. I got all wrapped up in the poem and forgot to do the thing I was actually here for. So this is the Board of Selectmen of Windsor House, Connecticut. This is to certify that Monsignor Robert O'Grady is hereby awarded the Certificate of Appreciation in recognition of his 25 years of dedicated service as a priest in the town of Windsor on this 26th day of September 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. One more round of applause for Monsignor Father O'Grady. The reception line will take that.